Hi, everyone, and welcome to the USC Viterbi School of Engineering Faculty Roundtable. Today's Faculty Roundtable is with the Mork Family Department of Chemical Engineering and Material Science. My name is Paul Ledesma. I'm the Executive Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School. But I'm the least important person here. We're going to get a chance to dive in and learn more from our faculty from the Mork Department to talk all about the discipline of chemical engineering, the academic and undergraduate programs in the program, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the classes and the research and everything that you're going to want to know. Here's how today's event's going to go. First, I'm going to have each of our faculty introduce themselves. Then I'm going to lead them all through a bunch of questions, kind of like a talk show where we'll talk about the program. Your job right now is to sit back and to listen and just to kind of be entertained. But be thinking about questions that you might want to ask. In the latter half of the section, I'm going to open up the Q&A function, and the Q&A function will have an opportunity for all of you to ask questions, and you all will control which questions we actually discuss because you're going to have an opportunity to upvote those questions. And so we're not doing that yet. I'll let you know when we are, but for the time being, let's get into our introductions. We will start with the professor and chair of the department, Professor Andrea Hodge.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to have you here listening to us and for you to learn more about our department. I'm Professor Hodge. I've been at USC for 18 years. I'm actually a material scientist, but our department is chemical engineering and material science combined. So I'm really excited to share with you some of the perspectives from the department material side, and you'll get to learn a little bit more with our other Professor Villalobos and Professor Graham. I always have undergraduate researchers in my lab. I had over probably 35 since I've been at USC, and I'm happy to answer any questions about all the great opportunities that undergrads have in our department and our research areas.
Thank you. Professor Graham.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Professor Nick Graham. So I am an associate professor in the department. I've been here since 2015. So my background is in chemical engineering, undergraduate, master's, and PhD. And I've been teaching recently one of our classes for freshmen, Introduction to Chemical Engineering, as well as also co-teaching our senior design course. And we're here to evangelize and tell you that chemical engineering is obviously the best of all the engineering disciplines. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Just cut to the chase. Let's get right to that right from the get-go. Good. Professor Villalobos.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Francisco Villalobos. I'm the newest hire in the department. I joined a bit more than a year and a half ago. I'm originally from Mexico, but my education is all over the place. So PhD in Saudi Arabia, then some time in Switzerland, and afterwards in Connecticut. And I'm setting up a lab here at USC that will focus in separations, more specifically membrane science. So we design filters that manage to separate molecules, to allow some molecules to go from one side to the other. But we'll talk more about that later. At USC, I teach two classes, one undergrad, one grad level. The undergrad, so if you join, you will take that one for sure, because a core class, it's Introduction to Separation Processes. And the other one, it's about energy and process efficiency. You can take it as an elective in the senior years, but it's more focused to the graduate students. In my lab, it's a very new lab, started, as I mentioned, a year and a half ago. We rely a lot on undergrads. I have 8 undergrads. My goal is for each undergrad that wants to, that they lead their own project. None of them are interested in that, so some of them just want to have a lab experience during their undergrad, but some of them, they end up being very passionate about research, and they completely lead their own projects within the lab. We have at Viterbi one opportunity called the Corp Fellowship, which I love. It matches students with advisors like us that have similar interests. These undergrad students, so it's only for undergrad students. So we can contribute in projects together. So more than half of the undergrads that I have in my lab are through this program. So happy to talk more about that later.
That's great. I love the list of all the exotic places you've been in the world, like Connecticut. It was a great list. Then we hit Connecticut. All right, let's dive into this. First off, the first question for everyone to understand, and I think that you're all the best people to get into this. Probably a relatively simply asked question, but complicated in its response. what the heck is chemical engineering? I think that's something to talk about. What's this discipline all about? And then I'll add a little other flavor to it. If we think that our audience, we know that our audience is mostly high school students and their parents, and they've taken chemistry. They understand what chemistry is. Maybe they're excited about that, but they don't know what the difference is and what do chemical engineering, what is this all about? How do we start there? Andrea, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I can give it a shot. I think, I'm an engineer. I'm fully embraced my engineering hat a long time ago. So I think there's the difference between like chemistry and chemical engineering. Chemistry studies the things that exist, the compounds, there's chemistry, the regular chemistry that's taken in high school. But when you add the engineering to it, you create things that don't exist. So now you take chemistry, the base of chemistry, to a whole new level and apply it. And that's what I love about engineering. It's about solving problems. So it's not about understanding what exists, but making something totally different from the things that are around us for the world that does exist, and making something completely new, such as vaccines or food additives, or your personal hygiene products, deodorant. All those things are chemical engineering products that take some basic chemical compounds, and then how do you make them into large batches, how you get them into the consumer, how you make them safe. That's where the engineering part comes into it. And then we can go into some things more exotic, like what Professor Graham and Professor Villalobos worked on, such as looking at how to solve, cancer issues, breast cancer research, as well as looking at separations for cleaner water, for cleaning processes. So it's taking it to a whole new level. And so if you love problem solving and you think of, yes, I am very interested in science, but I want to now make something that doesn't exist yet, I think then that's where engineering comes in, and that's the beauty of engineering.
Great. That's awesome. Any other thoughts?
So I'll jump in. So I think chemical engineering is, I like to think of it as the bridge between the microscopic sciences, the molecular sciences, the chemistry and biology and physics, as well as the macroscopic level, thinking about how those interactions among molecules translate into large scale processes. How do you not just separate molecules, but do it at a very large scale and efficiently and also profitably. So bridging length scales from the microscopic to the macroscopic. And I think, the understanding of kind of those physical forces as well as the chemical reactions, I think is really what sets chemical engineering apart from, the chemistry, where maybe you don't get quite as much of the understanding of physical processes, and also the other engineering disciplines where you don't get as much molecular science and chemistry. So
Great.
Yeah, I think I'll jump in just a little bit. I think Nick really found the part of chemical engineering that I like the most, which is about understanding things at the molecular level. So how a molecule prefers to be in the liquid phase or in the vapor phase, or how it managed to react in the surface of certain catalysts to be transformed into something else. And how we can take these and then decide a whole process that runs at a very, very large scales, and then involve economic evaluation and start thinking of trade-offs, right? At the lab scale, it might work really, really nice, but then when we scale it up, does it make sense to do it that way or not? And all these answers, you get them through chemical engineering type of analysis. If I would have to describe in few words, chemical engineering probably is the science of transforming matter and energy into something that is useful. This can be in the classical sense, what most people have in their minds, like in a chemical plant, right? Or in a petroleum refinery. But it goes much more than that. It's producing clean water or medicines, like the pharma industry hires lots of chemical engineerings. Advanced materials. So you can design them in the lab, but you need to scale up the process, right, to make them at large scale. So that's how I will define it in simple words, like the science of transforming matter and energy to something.
I like that. Matter and energy into useful things, useful products. Let's talk about how we get students through an undergraduate program. Let's talk about the curriculum. And maybe, Andrea, we'll start with you, because there's kind of some broad strokes to talk about what chemical engineers do, but I know that we have a lot of emphases and specializations, which have nothing to do with the admission process, by the way, but just, what chemical engineering goes through lots of different types of classes. What are those types of classes? What's the typical, story for an undergraduate moving through the program? And then I think I'll add also for all of you to jump in as necessary. What's it actually like to take one of your classes? Like, I think our students know what a high school class looks like, but what does it mean to take the classes? Are they just sitting listening to you all day? Which I'm sure is a great thing, but what are the other things that they're doing, if that makes any sense? Andrew, you're muted, by the way.
Okay, there you go. I'm not muted anymore. So I think I'm going to walk through several things. So if students just look through the website, sometimes they get
I'll put a
confused.
link also, by the way, so you can see, I'll put the link for our audience so they can look at the curriculum. Thank you for mentioning that.
And so people say, oh, you have like 5 chemical engineering programs. No, we have the degrees in chemical engineering, and then you can have different emphasis. So chemical engineering, so all the emphasis basically have the same course. So 90% of your classes are going to be exactly the same. And the emphasis just means that when you have some elective classes out of your 130 something units, those electives will be in the emphasis that you pick. You don't have to decide right now. It's not something you need to know right now, because in your first, second, and almost your third year, the classes are exactly the same. You only take 4 to 5 classes in your emphasis. And so it's not a huge deal not to know right now. And you will get to see that as you do undergraduate research, or as you meet your professors and really like different areas, as you learn more. So chemical engineering by itself already covers most of it. If you're interested in biological and pharmaceutical, then you can look into that, but you still won't be taking those classes in your first 2 years. The same for energy and sustainability. The first 2 years, you're still taking all the core classes, and then you can do, again, materials, or you can do petroleum and subsurface engineering. So you don't need to worry. You will be learning more. You should be asking questions. Once you come to USC, in that like intro weeks and months in your first semester, you start taking Chemi 120, which is our introductory Chemi class. Professor Graham teaches that. Professor Gupta will teach that as well. And that's another way to learn about more the intricacies of it, to see if you want just the regular chemical engineering or if you want an emphasis. You could also want a minor, so there's a lot of possibilities, but that shouldn't be your main concern now. How does it look like? Well, like most of engineering besides computer science, they look kind of similar. You have your physics, your math, your chemistry, your introductory engineering classes. So that looks somewhat similar. And then, by the time you take introduction to chemical engineering, and then by the second year, in the second semester, you start now a little bit of more taking, undergraduate classes in your major, and then that's when you always with your cohort, you basically all your students that are in chemical engineering. So they're actually really, really close. And I encourage you to not only look at the emphasis and the main core classes, but also AICE, which is the Chemical Engineering Society. It's our run, student-led, student-run, student-driven. They're super, super involved. This is the chemical engineering chapter at USC. They have tons of useful information. They meet weekly. They have a newsletter. They give you tips. They tell you, what helped them, what didn't help, what to take, what not to take, what they like, what they didn't like. So lots of things like that in the chemical engineering cohort, because they're really, really close. In the classes, if you love labs, you will love chemical engineering. We have so many labs. And the reason for it is that it's a lot of hands-on. And as Professor Graham said, that scaling up, learning all these processes, all these things. So as an experimentalist, I think the best way to learn is hands-on. So lots of these, yes, you do get lectures. Different people teach different ways. So every professor will be different, but lots of labs in small groups. So the groups are usually 3 or 4 people only. You run your own experiments, you run everything, you learn everything, you break everything yourself, you blow everything up yourself, not a big blow up, but a little blow up. So you really get to know what is going on and what it means from that equation that you saw the week before.
Great.
I'll just jump in to talk a little bit about what, classes look like. I think that, one of the advantages of USC is that our class sizes are relatively small. So usually we have about 30 to 40 students in a class, at least the ones that I have taught. So that introduction to chemical engineering course is maybe structured as a more traditional course where, I lecture and I do example problems and we have homeworks and exams. But then the other class I've been teaching recently, our senior capstone design course, is the opposite end of the spectrum. It's a semester-long group project where there's really no right answer. Every group has to be creative and try to figure out a way to solve the same problem. And even if they're solving the same problem, they do it in very different ways. And so, for example, last year we did a problem about designing a sustainable energy project related to the fact that solar panels generate electricity during the day, and you need a way to store that electricity so that you can harness it when the sun is not shining. So batteries are not currently scaled up to the point where we can store all that power with batteries. And so we were looking at how to store electricity generated by the sun in chemical bonds, actually making natural gas from carbon dioxide to make an energy storage medium. And so anyway, students had to start from this very kind of open-ended problem and figure out how to design the processes, research what processes were possible, and come up with a plan, evaluate the economics of that plan, and then present it to a panel of faculty members. And so in that class, because it's a semester-long group project, I'm more of a guide, someone who guides people and tries to help them, figure out whether their answer is a good one or not, rather than just imparting information and giving them a test. So I think there can be a lot of variation in how classes look at the undergraduate level.
Great. Thank you. Let's move on to my next question here, which is all about the ideas of research. We high school students love to get excited about, can I do research? What is research? So can we first talk about what's the direction that the chemical engineering department takes in research? What are some of those areas that we're covering? And then maybe you all can talk about individual research that you're involved in and what that actually means. I think it's really hard, similar to what you just did, Nick, now about like, what does a class look like? What is research? Some people get confused about this.
So I will put my hat as the chair. So everybody pretty much out of all 25 tenure track faculty have undergraduate students in their lab. Some people have a few, some people have many. And so we try to have everybody that wants to try it out. And research takes different aspects. So some labs, the three of us here are mostly experimentalists, so it's hands-on experiments, but Nick does do simulations too. Some groups are all computational, so that will look very different. And many of our students actually already know if they're leaning more to learning something more computational or more hands-on. Experiences depends also on the labs that they want to do. But I always said, since I meet the students, I usually go to the welcome week and the welcome lunches. I said, if you really want to do research, which as a freshman may be the easiest thing to start with because you're still just learning, please come to us, tell us, and we'll try to find you a match between the department. Because our cohort is small, we can easily put someone in any group that they want. And that has worked out for anyone, but you do have to speak up and tell us that you want to be matched or something similar. It could even be in a department that is kind of parallel to ours. If you need help, we are happy to do that. So in my group, for example, the undergraduates work 10 hours a week. That 10 hours, they work with a PhD student and they run some experiments with the PhD students. Sometimes when they have a lot of exams or lots of labs due, they don't show up, they don't come, basically don't show up. So we work easily with their schedule, but it's about 10 hours a week. And then for those that come in the summer, that's usually 20 to 30 hours a week, depending on what they want to do on the project. I work in space materials. Everything I do is to send things to space exploration, satellites, rovers in Mars, energy in the moon, domes in the moon. That's kind of why I work at the materials for high stream temperatures. So I was had undergrads working in my lab. So Paco or Nick, if you want to go.
Yeah, I could go. So I can tell a bit of what my lab does. I don't want to butcher what other professors' labs do because I'm fairly new. So I'll focus for now on what my lab does and how undergrads have taken a part of that research that we do. So in a very simple way, what we do is we make molecular filters. So we make, we call them membranes, but you can imagine them as like the filter you use for your coffee. In that case, you want the water to pass and retain these coffee particles. In our case, we want to retain some molecules that allow others to go to the other side. And this might sound simple, but when you go down to the molecular level, then you need to control very precisely the pore size of the materials that you use, and also the functional groups, the chemical moieties that you have in the surface, because these are the ones that will interact with the different chemical species that you have on one side of your filter, and you want to either allow them to go to the other side or reject them. And as Andrea briefly mentioned, it's purely experimental, my lab. So undergrad students, they tackle these projects very hands-on. So they go to the lab and they design these filters. And they do that by casting polymeric solutions. This is just making these slurry, honey-like viscous liquids and spreading them like you spread paint on top of a non-woven support, which is like our fabrics in our clothes. They let them cure, let them dry. It becomes solid, and then they test if what we thought will happen in reality happens. So we always come up with a hypothesis. Oh, if we do the process in this way, we might be able to tighten the structure more so the pores become smaller, and then maybe perhaps this type of molecule will not pass or will pass more efficiently, depends on what we try to do. And then they go and then they try these filters. We have different ways of trying them. Some of them we apply pressure with certain liquids to pass the molecules through them. Sometimes we use a concentration gradient. We just put the filter in between two chambers and we just allow the chemical potential. This is the difference in concentration to move molecules to one side to the other. We can apply a voltage to see if charged molecules go to one side or the other. Or if we work with gases, we just pressurize it. So students are involved in along the entirety of this process, from making the filters to testing what's happening with them at the macroscopic level. And then we go and try to explain this microscopic observation on a fundamental level by doing characterization like electron microscopy to do that at the structure at a smaller scale. Or we look at techniques like allow us to see which chemical groups are at the surface and so on. So many different things. We focus mainly in two different separations right now. One is lithium recovery and the other one is carbon capture. And I have undergrads involved in both. The involvement level in my lab varies widely, so I'm very flexible with that. I do require a minimum commitment, but my experience, many students, they enjoy it a lot and they start. So sometimes I need to tell them like, okay, you need to focus in something else. Focus, your classes are priority. So this tends to happen when they get too excited in what they are doing in the lab. But I'm very flexible with that. Undergrads can join our group meetings if they want to know what everyone in the lab is doing, but they don't have to, especially if they have classes during that time. And if they want, they can lead a project in my lab. So that's one of the things that I propose to every undergrad. First, you will be paired with a grad student. You will get all what you need to do research in the lab. If you are happy with that, then you can just get a research experience helping that grad students. But if you want, you can lead your own small projects that you can do during your time at USC.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to the next question, which is all about where do students go after the undergraduate program? And we know overall that students have lots of success. A good majority of our students go off into industry. Some students go off into graduate programs. And I'm not asking you all for stats or data, but maybe from the anecdotal perspective of students that what are the types of companies they go off to work for? What are the types of jobs that they do after their undergraduate years? Or what are the types of grad programs that they go off to? And what happens next, I guess, is the main question. Whoever would like to jump in and start off with the students and things you're aware of.
Nick, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the great things about chemical engineering is that it's a really good training for so many different types of jobs. I think the balance of having again, the molecular chemistry knowledge, but also the macroscopic kind of physical knowledge lends itself to a lot of different disciplines. So the most traditional place that people will go is the fine chemical or petrochemical industry, but that's actually only a small minority of chemical engineers who go into that industry. So people go into personal care products, healthcare products. People go into semiconductor industry. People go into consulting, to environmental and sustainability related jobs, as well as, government policy jobs. And, I think that the key is that a lot of industries look for chemical engineers because they need someone to kind of understand the chemistry and the physical processes, the scale up and everything. So is case in point from my own personal experience. So now I'm obviously a professor, but when I was an undergraduate, I did 3 internships. So one internship, I worked at a chemical plant where I made a chemical that was used as a water-resistant coating to go on things. So I was analyzing how that was made. And then in a second summer, I worked at a personal product care company where I worked on diapers and diaper technology, because diapers have absorbent chemicals that, absorb things, right? And so that's a chemical engineering discipline. And then my third summer, I worked at a lab actually, doing protein folding and understanding how proteins build their 3-dimensional shapes. So I worked in fine chemicals, personal care products, and biotechnology. And that's kind of, I think, emblematic of the diversity of places that students go when they graduate as well.
So I want to go on that, give you an exciting example, because if you go to our website, you can see that one of our chemical engineer alumni is now an astronaut. She was from this class.
KSP.
Yep, she was just
The new
selected.
astronaut, yeah.
And actually, one of my students was also in the finalists. They met, but she was not selected. But there was 2 students from USC that were in the finalists out of like the 20 people they called for the last interview at NASA. So maybe next time. But I mean, this tells you the diversity of it. So you can look on our website and look at like her background, but she's a chemical engineer undergrad. And since I've been here a long time, I had a wide range of students. A lot of the students that work in my lab went to, I would say at least a third or a half went to graduate school. And they went to places like Stanford, Caltech, MIT, Harvard, and they've done a lot of different things. So I think of one of my early students. He was actually a chemie. He became a neurosurgeon. He did the PhD, MD program at Harvard, MIT. He was brilliant. I have a paper, great student. Still keep up with him. Then one of my other students, he went into consulting. He's actually a partner now in McKinsey. So they've done a lot of different things. I have students in Medtronics, Aerospace Corporation. A lot of the ones that have worked for me went into more like materials, aerospace industry, because that makes sense, because that was what they were interested in. But it's been a wide range. And I know from the undergrads in my group, at least 5 of them are in the medical field as medical doctors, and 2 of them are surgeons. So really makes me feel old right now as I'm saying this. But maybe I can get like free surgery or something. I don't know.
I'll add in the pharmaceutical industry definitely is involved in this. More and more recently, the beauty industry is involved in this as well. We're seeing a lot of people going into the beauty product lines and skincare lines and things like that. Not to mention the traditional kind of chemical and energy type jobs that are out there.
Actually, I will mention one of our students from 3 years ago. One of the group, they went to different of the L'Oreal and kind of like the most cosmetic companies. And one of them went to kind of these tiny cosmetic company, because she was really passionate about not testing on animals and like changing the discussion of the beauty industry into non-animal testing. And I thought that was great. Like, what drives you, your passion is what's going to define you as a great engineer. And I thought that was really cool. I did get lots of free products and lots of mascara and stuff like that afterwards. So that was cool. But anyway, just really great that those passions and those interests drives the students. We also, I forgot, our awesome class in confectionery manufacturing. I know the students don't know me, but I am a sugar addict and I eat so much sugar. And so we had this class because chemical engineering has so much to do with the products that we eat and how much they last and how they taste and what tastes, bad or good or artificial, not artificial. That's all chemical engineering. And so I'm so happy that we have this class by somebody who worked for 30 plus years at the Mars company and is offering also internships to students to go to a Mars company and learn more about chemical food processing.
Now, I didn't get that in my memos. When does that class meet and where can I go by?
Oh yeah, so
We'll
they
talk,
do have
we'll
tasting.
talk afterwards.
Yeah, so
The tastings.
the hours is the class is in the spring semester.
Okay, so not
The
right.
labs are on Fridays.
Okay.
Their caramel so far in every class has been great. Marshmallows have been gross, but everything, and everything is kind of like so-so. But the caramel has been really good so far for every class.
All right. All right. Good to know. Good to know. Important to know.
Yeah, I think I can vouch for the caramel because I get some of these treats. My office is not too far away from the lab, so I get these treats. And let me just add something very
Please.
briefly too. I think they did a great job describing all the possibilities for what our students can do once they finish. But this broad range of options also makes it difficult to decide what you want to do. So I encourage undergrad students to do internships during the summer, and many of our students they do, and then you can get a taste of how is it to work for a cosmetic company. Two of my former students in my separations class did an internship there. Then I had one student doing an internship in a bank. So that was a bit weird, but okay, maybe he was interested in the financial side. Also, for some reason, the financial analysis companies they tend to pick an interest in chemical engineers. Maybe it's because we look at processes really well. But because I also got an offer when I finished my undergrad in a bank and in a consultant company, but I ended up not taking it. And few of my cohort people, they also got one. But okay, my message for students is that give it a shot to doing internship in areas that you are interested in, so you can pick among the vast number of options that you have as a chemical engineer.
That is an important point to end on, is that a degree, and I think Nick, you mentioned this as well, that a degree in chemical engineering does not limit you. It's just the opportunities of what you want to do afterwards. And that may or may not be necessarily related to your curriculum, because at its core, what you're essentially getting is an education in how to solve problems and how to understand systems and processes and the ideas of becoming efficiency experts. I mean, that's at its core what you're becoming as a chemical engineer. And that application to consulting, to finance, to really any industry is desired by practically any industry out there, which is why engineering, and this is true of every engineering discipline, but a lot of people think chemical engineering is so specific. I'm like, well, if you like the ideas of what what these faculty are talking about, then that's the work that you'll be doing. How you apply that later in your life is somewhat infinite in the opportunities. This is my warning to our audience. I am going to be opening up the Q&A. And so the Q&A is now open. If you navigate to the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a Q&A button. That Q&A button is an opportunity for you to start asking questions. You can feel free to start asking questions. Please limit one question per entry. If you have multiple questions, do multiple entries. And then if you don't have questions, you just start upvoting. And so it's a democratic process. Whoever has the most upvotes, that's the order in which we're going to go through, and it will be live. So you can continue to ask questions. You can continue to upvote as much as possible. I'm going to ask one more question to our audience, and then we'll get into the Q&A. So please start digging into the Q&A right now. Start throwing in those questions, and we'll be going as long as we possibly can. And also, these questions should not be related to admission, because we have plenty of admission events going on. You can go to one of our admission events. This is with our faculty for the department. So let's talk about the discipline. Let's talk about the curriculum. Let's talk about the research. Let's talk about anything like that. Now, last question for our faculty before we get into the Q&A. Chemical engineering, all engineering disciplines are always about the ideas of new. And as we talked about in the beginning, you're developing new technology. It's not about the existing stuff. It's creating something. So what are you all most excited about related to chemical engineering in the next 5-10 years? What's around the corner for this discipline?
I have my own opinion
Yeah,
as the chair and talking to all my colleagues in chemie. I think energy. The world cannot run without energy. The world cannot run without food. So whether you're interested in either one, you like food or you like having your energy, I think that this is chemical engineering is pivotal to that. Whether, you know, computer science, AI, all these cannot prosper without the proper energy balance. You hear a lot of issues with how much energy is consumed. We hear issues whether it's renewable energy or climate change or anything like that related to energy. And I think this is the field who trains those people, whether to have more sustainable energy systems for legacy systems like petroleum. This is the field where people are trained into those energy fields, and no other field does that. And so I think energy is the future. It's going to become even more of a precious resource. It's unevenly distributed to the world. So I really see the field moving that way, whether it's clean energy or more efficient energy or just energy in general, or even energy that doesn't exist yet. I think that's where we're going, and this is the department to do that. Also, as a food advocate, better tasting food and probably the last longer or drought resistance or things like that. This is where it's going to be at. People always need to eat. I mean, people always need energy, and so you're talking to, and also medicine. So, three things that for humanity to continue or to go beyond this planet are in this department, and that is like at the baseline of chemical engineering.
Resources, all resources.
Yes.
And you can't, correct me if I'm wrong, but the ideas of energy, you can't create fuel cells or batteries without chemical engineers.
Yep.
And a lot of people think, oh, that's an electrical problem, or that's a chemical or AI and their use of energy is a computer science problem. Yes, it is, but you can't do these other things without chemical engineering, the physical elements.
Without energy, the world runs on energy, different types of energy. And so that really, and I'm not talking only one type of energy, there's multiple, because there's different resources geographically, but I think it's exciting because there's so much to do, because we're using technology from like 150 years ago, and yet we have these new technologies that are so advanced, and there's a mismatch. So this is great opportunity for the field to grow and fill in the gaps and say, this is how you do energy, this is how you do energy right. And this is where it's going to come from this department.
Any other thoughts, Nick, Paco?
I think, what excites me the most about being a chemical engineer now at this moment in time is that we'll play a key role in the energy transition that we are all experiencing. So we are moving from relying almost entirely on fossil fuels to have a more balanced energy mix. And we cannot do that without chemical engineers. We'll play a key role in doing that to recover critical materials more efficiently, do processes more sustainably and more efficient so they require less energy, and also to decarbonize different industries that currently are heavy on CO2 production. So I think this is what excites me the most of being a chemical engineer nowadays.
Great.
Yeah, so I will jump in and say that I agree with everything that Dr. Hodge and Dr. Villalobos said. My personal research interests are in the bioengineering space and taking kind of chemical engineering principles and using them to design new personalized medicines and how to also manufacture like living drugs. So this is something that, you know, as chemical engineers, we know how to manufacture fine chemicals, but we also know how to manufacture, you know, living substances for medicines. And I think the way that we're going to be able to design and tailor and understand personalized living medicines is something that's going to be dramatically impacted by chemical engineers. And it's a field where I think, you know, we're also poised to contribute.
Great. Thank you so much. And so the rest of their time will be devoted to you as our audience and the questions that you have. So as a reminder, the Q&A function is live and it is going to continue to be live. So please continue to ask questions, and also please continue to upvote, because if you want a question answered, it's got to be pushed to the top. And we're going to be making our way down through these as much as possible. So please pay attention to that. Please load it onto that as quickly as possible, and we'll get through them as best we possibly can. The first question that wins the prize goes to Kai Bishop. Kai, congratulations. We'll be sending the prize to you later. The first question is, what are some chemical engineering internship opportunities at USC? And I will answer this one, but please jump in, faculty, if you like. I apologize. What I should have mentioned earlier is that everything we talked about with outcomes, that's where the students are interning too, right? They don't get to those outcomes or those jobs because they intern there. So all the places, all the industries, all the companies we talked about with jobs, that's the internship opportunities. We have hundreds of employers recruiting our students every single semester. We have a centralized career services opportunity here in the Viterbi School that works with our students in chemical engineering and all of our majors to help them get to that next phase. And so students are very, very successful in those opportunities. I don't know if there's anything else you all want to add, but for me, just keep going.
I will say that most of the students, I talk to all the seniors all the time, and I will say the majority of them have done at least one internship, which has been important in letting them know what they're going to do next.
I've never known of a student who wanted an internship that didn't get an internship because we have lots of resources to help.
Yeah.
Our next question is from Tommy MacBook. Tommy MacBook, I'm assuming that's your given name. Tommy MacBook, is it realistic to have a minor while majoring in chemistry, or do most students choose not to because of the course load? I will also say, Tommy, embedded into your question, those are not mutually exclusive facts. Yes, it's realistic to have a minor in chemistry. And yes, a lot of students don't choose to do that. That doesn't mean that there's one or the other. So keep in mind that students come to engineering at USC, obviously, because it's a top-notch, technical, rigorous educational program, but there's also the opportunities to engage in other disciplines outside of which. And you can do so by just taking some classes if you want to, engaging in a minor program, or if you're so bold, getting a second bachelor's degree. Students are doing all versions of these things. Now, about approximately percentage-wise, I'd say probably about 40% of our students are doing some sort of additional curricular program on top of their undergraduate degree program. The majority of those students are doing minors. That means 60% aren't, but the 60% are still doing other classes outside of that. You don't have to be involved in a curricular program to engage in other things like dance or music or business or entrepreneurship or political science or philosophy, whatever the things that you want to do. We have that here at USC, and that's a great reason to do so. That said, high school students tend to say, I'm going to do 3 things and 4 things and 5 things. And I say, great, go for it. And we will gladly accept tuition checks from you for as long as you want to be enrolled, because your chemical engineering degree program is a full 4-year program and at that. And anything you do on top of it is on top of it. So we'll work with you. We'll have advisors. We'll be helping you down that process. But there is an idea of are your stomachs too big? Are your eyes too big for your stomach? Right. So, but we have those opportunities to do that, and students are really engaged. Try to summarize that quickly. Do y'all have any other thoughts on that?
Oh, I agree.
So I will just say, anecdotally, I have had many students who have done minors or second majors in business or in music or in English or in film. And so I come across students all the time who are combining chemical engineering as their major with a passion for something else. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about USC is we have such an incredible diversity of scholars in everything.
That's great. Thank you. Our next question comes from George Santiago. George, great question. Is studying abroad available for chemical engineering students? Absolutely. We don't have programs specific by major. All opportunities are open to all majors, and chemical engineers study abroad just as frequently as any other students. And that's because we don't limit that. So engineering students are going on any of the university programs, and then we have special programs specifically for engineering students. You can go as short as a week. You can go for like a break. You can go for a semester. You can go for our Maymester or our fall lead programs, summer programs. There's a lot of different opportunities, and we have lots of opportunities to engage. Next is Jane. Jane is asking, can chemical engineers realistically balance intensive majors? I'm assuming referring to chemical engineering as an intensive major, and still participate in arts-based extracurriculars? Absolutely. That's very similar to what we just asked about, whether you want to engage in that from a curricular standpoint or from your involvement. Students are doing that all the time. Eli is asking, what is one factor of your chemistry program that you think could be improved with respect to other universities' programs? I don't really understand the latter half of that question, but what's something that, let's go to Dr. Hodge. Is there something that you're working on right now? I know you've also done a lot of work recently in refining the curriculum and making some big changes, just so everyone's aware. Dr. Hodge has led the efforts to really reshape the chemistry program and done some a lot of stuff. So I don't know if there's anything still left on our list, because it's gotten to a point where it's pretty tight.
We really work in the lab experience to really enhance that even more, to make sure that the students really get hands-on, and no one is sitting there like, oh, I just watched the TA do it, or I just watched the professor do it. No, like you actually get to do it. But that was already part of it. I think we just enhance it more. I really love the small cohort. There's about 35 students per cohort between each year. So they're really, really close. And I think that makes it special from any other group of schools, because they help each other and they're so, so close that they create this amazing family. I mean, they're just amazing friends, and they're closer than any of the other engineering students in the other majors because they take so many classes together. And I really love how they build that community and how they bring each other up. And so I don't know, more labs. I don't know. We have a lot of labs, but it's hard to think a lot of what to improve because we've been working so much at it and really thinking from the student perspective, what would you like to see and how the curriculum has been shaped. Like we included machine learning, AI things, so to make sure that you up and competitive with anybody from any top school as well. So the curriculum is evolving. It's not static because you want to make sure that when you come out, you have the best preparation possible. So yes, I was looking for improvement, but we also doing improvement continuously.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to be aware of, is that a lot of our students, the faculty here across everything, but specifically in this department, are always tinkering with things, always changing things. It's never a done deal. And I think that that's one of the most important elements that I find valuable in our programs, is that our faculty have somewhat of an entrepreneurial spirit when they're looking at the curriculum. The idea of like, how can we improve? How can we make this a little bit better? And that comes to how individual faculty are teaching their classes, down to the department chair organizing the structure of the curriculum, and also maintaining consistency and relevancy in an environment, a professional environment that are seeking the new next big thing. Training is not static, as Dr. Hodge mentioned. This idea of understanding how to be a chemical engineer is different now than it was 10 years ago. It will be different 10 years from now because of the constant vigilance that goes into these curriculum reviews and the experience, I should say. Curriculum and experience are two different things. And I think that's a mindful thing. I've mentioned this in the chat, everybody, but I just want to make sure. It looks like the upvotes have essentially stopped. And so if you have something you want to get answered, then get in there and keep upvoting. So get in there and make sure that you want something to be pushed to the top. We got about 10 minutes left, and so we want to make sure that we're getting to the things that you want to talk about. Our next question is from Sahil Shah. How does the Chemie curriculum prepare you for pharmaceutical job prospects specifically? We're saying students are going into pharmaceutical jobs, but Sahil's not satisfied. He says he wants specifics. How are specifically, like on Monday and 4 p.m., what is happening specifically?
Well, I can tackle that one. So, as one of the faculty who kind of bridges between traditional chemical engineering and biopharmaceutical spaces, we've actually recently been talking with the School of Pharmacy, which has some undergraduate classes here on this campus, about trying to have cross-listed classes or classes that would be specifically geared for students from kind of a quantitative background as a chemical engineer, to think about how are these principles used in the pharmaceutical industry. And then I'll also speak to a class that I have taught in the past is one of our upper level junior, senior, graduate, or undergraduate elective classes. It's Introduction to kind of Bioengineering. And so it's, again, taking traditional chemical engineering processes and merging them with the life sciences to think about, how do we specifically integrate with the pharmaceutical industry.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
If you go into the curriculum, you can also see some of the classes that are joined with the pharmacy school, such as biologics and vaccines, drug safety, pharmacology, and toxicology. So you really get in the nitty-gritty of this to prepare more specifically with a chemical engineer background and the pharmaceutical background.
Which is lovely, because our next question is a kind of a repeat of that same question. There's two questions. The second question I'll say now because we just answered it. Can you major in chemical engineering and later focus on pharmaceuticals without going to med school? Yes, that's exactly what it is. Students, chemical engineers go into pharmaceuticals all the time. Julie's also asking, can you major in chemical engineering and be a pre-med student at the same time? Absolutely. Pre-med's not a major at USC. Any major can go on to to pre-med, and chemical engineering, if I'm correct, has the majority of all the pre-med prereqs kind of built in. I think you got to take like one extra biology class, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, chemical engineers go on to med school all the time. And to be quite frank, are far more attractive to medical schools than chemistry majors because you have all the same chemistry background, but all of the application-based knowledge, and you've been through a more rigorous program. So chemical engineers are well prepared to go to medical school just with the curriculum alone. Isabel is asking, I'm in 10th grade. What AP classes can I take to help me get it? That's an admission question that I said we couldn't ask because we're going to deal with our faculty, but just nothing's going to help you get in. Just take the rigorous classes, math and science that's required for your school, and just keep moving forward. There's no specific sciences, but if you're going to chemical engineering, probably a good idea to take chemistry, right? But do you have to? Not necessarily. If it's whatever's based on your program, but I would encourage you to attend one of our admission sessions so we can talk more about the admission process holistically. That's a very specific question that out of context is not very, very helpful. Next question has jumped to the top. Eli is just plain saying it, and I was going to end this program, but what makes USC's chemical engineering program better than other top universities? Because of course we are the best, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Absolutely, sure, yeah. So what do you think makes us a little bit different?
Well, first of all, there's only 3 programs in the country that are materials and chemical engineering together. So that's already a very unique perspective. So to take that to a different level. The other thing that is very unique to the program is the size of the program. As a private school, I just went, and I won't say where, and they told me there were 350 chemie students. So the classes are huge. So it just depends on what you want to really. Undergraduate to me is a time to flourish, learn what you love, get all those skills that you have from your high school, and really develop them to see what the person and what kind of scientist and engineer you're going to become. And that really helps when you have a smaller department. But yeah, you have world experts in all these fields, and you have a larger university also to explore all these other things. I think that's one of the many things that makes USC chemistry program very unique. And I mean, it's unique to California because it's the only one that is mixed right now in chemie and math sci. But it's unique also to the country in many different ways. So it provides very different opportunities and perspectives, and also the size of it, I think, is a big plus.
I'll add on to that. Where else do you see these faces do these things? I mean, this is a little bit of a laughing point, but like these are fantastic people that took time out of their day to talk to prospective high school students, and I think that says a lot about the department. I think that says a lot about this space, and I think the idea that these individuals are here to care for undergraduates, that they teach all classes are taught by faculty. Those are some key distinctions. The opportunity to be engaged at a university where you have all these opportunities across and outside of chemical engineering, and the opportunities to move towards the professional development across industries. It's not like another chemical engineering department where like that is the pathway to oil and that is it. This is a very, very broad program, and that's part of the extension of the Viterbi School in general, in that we are this broad program where we know that problems are not solved by individual disciplines, but rather on the in-between of chemical and mechanical, of chemical and aerospace, of chemical and computer science. All of the things we've talked about so far in this entire element, I would encourage you to watch the recording when we put it up. All the things we talked about, that's what I think makes this incredibly special, because I don't know of another school that does what we do with the people that we have and the care that we have. And I think those are big elements.
I think, kind of wrapping that up, we listen to the students as well. So again, back to my confectionery class, I'm not the only sugar addict. Students were asking for something in that area, in like food processing.
Food processing, food development,
but it took a while to get like a top person in the country to do this, because it could not be just anyone. So this is, like I said, a Mars Fellow, PhD, 30 years of experience, lots of connections to bring, and the loves teaching students. So we needed to have that as well. It's not just a scholar, but somebody who wants to engage with the students and make you the better person, And I'm not saying this just to say it, because I say it to my own daughter. I want you to grow, but I want you to be happy, because life is short. So I want you to enjoy these 4 years and become the best person you can, because you're surrounded by all these people that are also happy and want to change the world. And that's what you find at USC, and that's what you find in the chemical engineering department.
Great. Our last question of the evening. I probably should have saved that for last. I'm sorry, guys. That was a really good ending point. Now I feel like we're just going to it afterward. But the last question is from Jonathan. Jonathan Chen is asking, how does USC Chemie exemplify an interdisciplinary nature, either through research or courses? We kind of just did talk about that a little bit, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
Well, I think, like I said, we have these three areas of research, like the traditional chemie, future kind of focus on a lot of energy-related issues in both experimental and computational methods. Then we have the biocellular side that looks at what chemical engineers can do for better medicine, living medicines. I'm expecting them to cure anything I will ever have, and so I'm waiting for Nick to solve all these problems.
Going to help us live longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And better and better. So it's not just killing bad cells, it's also making the good cells live longer, because I saw all his research profile when he came out for tenure. And then things like better materials for better living, for more efficient, from a cleaner world, for more sustainable energy resources. So, and then better food. So that's also part of the things that we're doing. It's very, so you see all of that in the department. So you really can go to your area of interest, or just move around and see what really strikes you, because you may think you're interested in something and then you're not once you do it. But this is the time to find out. Now when you're working and you're like, I really hate this. No, find out now. So that's why we allow you to do this and move around and go to different labs or do different internships, so you know.
Can I flip the question a little bit for you all? I mean, like, as faculty, you have opportunities to go into different universities for different reasons and different job offers. Can you talk about the influence of the fact that this is a chemical engineering department that has all of these other departments here, and your ability to engage? Like, is that a thing that called you to this place?
To me, it was the fact that it's material science combined with chemical engineering makes it the perfect place for my type of research. And if you want just to get a taste of how interdisciplinary the department is, you can just go to the websites of all the research groups that we have in the department. You will not find that many similarities. The core principles are there. We all use what we learned during chemical engineering in our research, but it's as different as it can be. Like Nick and I, for example, we work in so different things, or Andrea and myself. But we all find ways to connect our expertise to push our particular set of interests forward. But yeah.
Well, I think the people make a huge difference. A lot of times when people somewhere ask me, oh, would you like to move and how would you describe your department? And I have all these wonderful people to talk about. I mean, of course, Professor Villalobos and Professor Gan are great, but Professor Monster is awesome. Wei is the coolest faculty we have. Sorry, I have to say that. I told Wei I will say that. I mean, Shama is awesome. Like, there's so many, and like Professor Grunderfelder is great, Professor Packer, so it just continues and continues. At some point, they just give up and like, okay, whatever, because there's so many great people that you find here that really care about what they do, not just research-wise, but also about the students. We could all be doing something else, but we decided, I love college so much, I never left. I'm still here. So, and the undergrads keep us young and alive. And I think, they're the core of what runs the university and what makes that university shine. And so that's what they're so very, very important. And I think we all know that.
Well, there couldn't be a better point to end on. To all of our guests, thank you for joining us today. First and foremost, thank you to our faculty, Professor Villalobos, Professor Graham, and Professor Hodge. We truly appreciate you taking time to visit with our students. And if you happen to miss any part of this, the recording will be up on our YouTube page, likely in the next day or so. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you at other admission events. Go to viterbi.link/events to check out anything else that's going on in person and virtual. And don't forget about those application deadlines. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good night.
Fight on. All right. Thank you.